How's it going, everybody? Today's project, we have a Toro Recycler self-propelled 6.75 Kohler engine push lawnmower. A customer asked me to do a tune-up on it, and also said that the last time you ran it in the fall, that it would run for about 10-15 minutes and then shut off automatically on its own. And then you wouldn't be able to get it started. You'd let it cool down for about an hour, and then you'd fire it back up and it would stay running again for another 5 minutes or so and then die. So let's see if we can duplicate the problem. We'll diagnose it. I have a couple of ideas, and see if we can't get this guy fixed up. I have checked the oil. There is some fuel in here. I don't know if it was from last year or for this year, so we'll see if everything runs. Okay, so I've taken off the air filter cover and the air filter itself. This particular machine's got a auto choke system, and right in here you can see that the choke lever is actually closed, so that's where it's supposed to be. So what I'm going to do is see if I can put a little bit of fuel in there and sort of prime it that way. So I'm just going to try and prop the choke open, stick some fuel in there, and we'll see if this works. Alright, so as part of my tune-up service, I always clean up the carburetors anyways. I was just hoping to reproduce the issue of it staying running for only 10 or 15 minutes and then dying. So we'll have to reproduce that after we do the carb clean and the tune-up. So I got you up on this stand here. Just going to take this air filter cover off, or housing I should say. So there's two 10 mil nuts here. A 10 millimeter bolt goes there. Alright, and then you got a crankcase breather here. I'll hopefully keep that out of the way. So now here's the carburetor. So what I'm going to do is take the fuel line off next. I'm going to pinch the fuel line. Take off the hose clamp. Get a little drippage. So now this one's got an as part of the auto choke system, there's a rod that comes across here to this bracket for the auto choke. The torque screw there for that bracket. This is a T20. I'm going to take this torque screw out here. And take this one out here. Should give us a little play for this bracket. So you just kind of, there's a Z-bend on the end of this guy, so you can kind of manipulate this lever to try and get the Z-bend off. and then you can pull the carburetor off. Well, there's a little return spring here that you have to take off, and also your throttle cable. Throttle cable is just easy. It just turn it and then lift it out. Alright, so now I have one cooler carburetor. So I'm going to do a carb clean on this guy. While I'm doing that, I am going to let the fuel drip out of this fuel tank, because I don't know how old this fuel is. I always change out the fuel from people's machines when it comes to me, even if they say it's fresh gas, because their idea of fresh gas could be it came out of the gas can that was filled up last year. And I've just had too many fuel related issues, so I'm going to let this guy drain. I have to wedge this in somewhere so it just doesn't leak and spill. Open the fuel tank. Usually that helps with the flow a little bit. So I'm going to drain that, guys, and I'll be back with the carburetor clean. So before I get into the carb clean, what I'd like to do is get this gas tank completely off, and I'd like to get it all dried out. Another reason why I can't stand cooler, I don't know why you have to make it so difficult to put a gas cap back on. Looks like the whole stud's coming up. Alright, so the gas tank's off. Now I'm going to go let that air out outside. It's a nice sunny day again today. First thing I'll do is, maybe, remove the bottom bowl nut. Oh, definitely lots of water. There you go, guys. It's kind of like oil and water, except it's fuel and water. So as I suspected, take off this float bowl. Look at the nice nastiness in there. That, guys, is old ethanol fuel gelled up. So with all the ethanol in our gas nowadays, guys, it's really important to run your equipment out of fuel before you put it away for storage. I'm going to take off these little clamps here because this little hose is bothering me. Alright, there you go, some more gelled up ethanol fuel. Take the float pin out. Sorry about that. Take the float pin out. Take out the float and the needle. Now the needle looks good. What you're kind of looking for is a ring around the rubber tip of the needle. I don't see any of that or evidence of that, so that's good. The seat in itself is a brass seat. It's not replaceable. So that I do like, and the fact that there's a little spring on there that holds that needle in place, I do like that. There's a bunch of gunk in here. And your emulsion tube or your pickup tube. This is where it picks up the fuel. Inside of here there's a jet. It's also a brass jet, and because there's a lot of water and hopefully it's not corroded in there. No, that one's nice and loose. So you got to be careful with these guys. You can strip them pretty easily. In fact, it's very important to use the appropriate sized screwdriver. The widest one that will fit in there, basically. And you just keep turning that out. And the main jet comes out. And behind the main jet, there's your emulsion tube. Okay? Now when you're cleaning these out, guys, you can see, hopefully, there are a whole bunch of little holes in passageways. Trusty bread clip. And I'm going to go into each one of these passageways and make sure that they're nice and cleaned out individually all the way through. Straight down, just cutting them. Clean all the passageways. There's the main center portion. I mean, have real target, that's pretty cool. Now there are some smaller holes as well. And just that one in there. Oh, yeah, you won't feel it through. So get yourself a smaller bread clip, or you take a little piece of wire off of a wire brush or a wire wheel, and that should fit through there. Alright, so that guy's good. And here's your main jet. Now this main jet is almost completely clogged, and that's probably why we weren't getting any fuel. Any fuel we would have got to the carburetor or into the engine would have been water anyways, but this guy is pretty much completely clogged. Another tool I use sometimes is these welding torch tip cleaners. These aren't that expensive. I think I paid $7.99 Canadian Tire. And what you want to do is find the biggest one that goes through this hole without having to ream it out at all. There you go. And that'll clean out any of the gunk out of there. Just make sure, go up one more size just to make sure that was the biggest one. Yep. Objective is not to make the hole bigger, just to clean out any of the gunk out of there. Alright. And now I can see through that main jet. There you go. Before that was pretty much completely blocked off, no light getting through there at all. That guy's done, that guy's done. I will spray those out with some carb cleaner as well. The other thing I'm going to do is just spray all of these sort of passageways with carb cleaner, get as much of that gunk out of there as I can. These little passageways here. So any little small orifices, maybe just spray the outside just a little bit as well. And then I got to clean out this bowl. So first thing I do is try and get all this gel out of here. I imagine once I get this gel out, it won't be that bad. Alright, so I'm going to go spray some air in there, and then try and clean that out a little bit better. So one other thing with these carburetors, guys, you have to do is there's an idle circuit, and all you do is take this guy out, take a flathead screwdriver and pry this little plug out nice and gently. And down in there, there's a bit of a passageway. Just spray a little bit of carb cleaner in there for your idle circuit. And then there's a huge hole here, and then there's a small little hole in there, super tiny. And you just gotta make sure that guy is poked through. Okay. Spray just a touch of carb spray through there. Alright. Now she's ready to go back together. So this is just pressure fit. The only thing you gotta do is make sure it's basically the horizontal parts line up with the horizontal part here, front and back. Snap that guy back in. Now this adjusts the idle speed of your lawnmower. Now none of these lawnmowers nowadays actually have an idle speed. You can't actually change the RPM, it's fixed. So all I'm doing here, here's my throttle butterfly. I'm going to have it in the fully closed position, and then I'm just going to screw that in until I see it touch the arm for the throttle. When it starts moving, that's where I'm going to set it. Alright, time for some reassembly. First things first, emulsion tube, nice and cleaned out. Carb cleaner, main jet goes in next. When you tighten it down, just like I said before, don't over tighten it because you're going to strip the head of this thing and you'll never get it out again. Then your carburetor will be junk. So I just started to feel some resistance there now, and maybe 1/16 of a turn just to snug it up. So that's that. Float. Float pin. Now I'm going to test my float, my needle and seat before I put it back together. For a link to the video on how I do that, you can just click up on the top right of your screen right now, and I'll be back when I'm done that. So I tested the needle and seat, everything seems okay there. Now just to put the gasket back on. It's in good shape, so I'm going to reuse that. Some guys just don't want to have any problems with it, so they just replace the parts, and I can understand that too. So I'm going to put the bowl back on in such a way that I'll be able to access the drain valve. I'm going to spray a little bit of lubricant on the threads, since this guy was a little on the rusty side. That way if I service it again, I won't have as many issues next time, or whoever services it next will thank me. 10 mil. Alright, so my customer's complaint was that the engine would run for 10 or 15 minutes and then die out, which is typically a sign of a bad ignition coil. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of rust on the flywheel here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this coil and I'm going to clean the contacts. I'm also going to re-gap it. It doesn't look like there's really any gap, a very small amount of gap. So I'm going to re-gap the ignition coil to the flywheel and clean it all up and see if maybe that might help the problem. And if it's not, then I'm going to probably most likely have to replace this ignition coil. Just try and clean it up the best you can. I don't think this is a rust problem. But more, a little bit more time focused on the main part of it. It's not around here now, you can see. One here, that's nice and clean this area. Bet you can. Just wipe it off the best you can. See how much better that looks. I mean, you could go full bore at this and get it nice and shiny, but I don't think it's necessary. And I just heard the ignition coil rubbing there for a split second when I was rotating that. So I'm thinking that this ignition coil personally is probably not gapped properly. So I'm going to go ahead and re-gap that. Man, oh man, that's tight. I certainly don't want to snap that off. I've got it loosened off enough that I can move this, and I don't know if I can even get some sandpaper in there. For gapping, I'm just going to use an old business card, and I'll bring this guy around until the magnet lines up, and it'll suck that coil in, which it has. And now I'm going to tighten down my 2 bolts. Hold it up. So now it looks like a better gap. Before it looked like there was minimal to no gap. Alright. So now we're ready to put the carburetor back on. Let's see if I can do this one-handed just to show you guys a little closer view. Might be difficult to do. So this spring goes in this hole right there, and then this throttle linkage goes in here. I'm just have to try and hold that with one hand. Alright, so there you go. It goes in there like that. Okay, so that's how we hook up the linkages. Alright, now for the fuel tank to go back on. Alright, so I got my dried out fuel tank, cleaned out fuel tank, on here. Just snug those up. I have heard reports of people snugging those up too tight, and then it bends the plastic over time, deforms the plastic, and then it never makes a good seal after that and leaks in air. And then the motor doesn't run right because it's running too lean. So she's all back together again. Just the starter recoil cover. That guy off. Alright, so we got it all buttoned up now. Got the top cover back on. I'm not going to put the air filter in yet. I just want to see if this thing will run. I'm going to put some fresh gas in it, and we're going to give it a test run. See how we did with the carb clean. Alright guys, so here's the final product. She's all buffed up. Day at the spa. Looks nice. I'll try and post a before and after picture. She's all cleaned up, ready to go. Looks brand new. So thanks again for joining me in the garage today, guys. If you guys learned something, or maybe you just enjoyed the content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. And until next time, take care.